Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. Make sure to hit the subscribe, like, and share buttons. Well, something big just happened. I mean, huge. And I believe, I saw reference to it in a few media outlets and then most just moved on. But I cannot overstate the importance of what just happened, at least I believe. And we're going to talk about that today because I believe it is just the latest nail in the coffin of the United States as the world's preeminent global superpower. And we've talked a little bit about this in the past in some videos titled, I believe, Has World War III already started? And does this mean Putin is about to win? But I've believed for quite some time, and we've talked about this in the past, that Vladimir Putin had one primary objective in mind when he went into Ukraine. There were a whole bunch of them, but it's not what most people think. And I believe that he took yet another step forward in achieving that objective and may very well have achieved that objective these past few days. That's how important this is. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about this article right here. And Hedge, which is reporting on this story, one of the few outlets that I saw report on it, it says, Pozar was right. Saudis confirm non-dollar oil trade plans in Davos. And I want to focus on this first paragraph in particular because I think this says a lot, even though it's not directly related to the story that they're talking about. But it says, earlier this month, former New York Fed repo guru Zoltan Pozar wrote one of his most important reports of 2022 in which he described how Putin could unleash hell on the Western financial system by demanding that instead of dollars, Russian oil exporters are paid in gold, effectively pegging oil to gold and launching petrogold. Now, you'll want to go back, if you don't understand what all that means, go back and watch some of those videos I referenced earlier. I'll put links to those in the description below so you can go watch those. But in short, if this happens, there's a scenario where Putin could offer a gold for oil trade as the lowest cost producer of oil on the planet. Russia could do that and say, well, we'll trade a gram of gold for 2 barrels of oil, even though a gram of oil costs or a gram of gold right now costs the same as 1 barrel of oil. We'll offer 2. And then that either drives up the price of gold, or the West continues to try to financially suppress the price of gold, which has been going on for years, and destroys its domestic oil industry. So those are the two choices, and I believe they would choose having the price of gold go up. But if the price of gold were to double, well, the Western financial system, the shock to that would be enormous. And we're going to go ahead and talk about how that is. But the main point of this story has to do with Saudi Arabia. This goes on. It says, then China's President Xi visited with Saudi Arabia, and GCC leaders marked the birth of the petro-yuan and a leap in China's growing encumbrance of OPEC Plus's oil and gas reserves. That's because with the China GCC summit, China can now claim to have built a special relationship not only with the plus sign in OPEC Plus, that would be Russia, but with Iran and all of OPEC Plus. So the world's providers of energy, oil, natural gas, those are the primary forms of energy, even though many politicians would like us to think it's windmills. It is not. It is oil and natural gas. That's what runs the planet. And those countries that are most able to produce that are now in the orbit of Russia, China, and the BRICS nations, not the United States. So this goes on. It says, at the time, Zoltan urged the reader to think of the timing of this statement in a diplomatic sense. President Xi communicated his message on renminbi, so we'll just say Chinese currency, to make it simple to understand, Chinese currency invoicing, not during the first day of his visit when he met only the Saudi leadership, but during the second day of his visit when he met the leadership of all the GCC countries to signal the following: GCC oil flowing east plus Chinese currency invoicing equals the dawn of the petro yuan. So as we think back on, we've talked about this in the past, in 1971, President Nixon closed the gold window and effectively severed the tie between the US dollar and gold. That made the US dollar a free-floating fiat currency backed by nothing. In order to prevent massive inflation and hyperinflation, the United States made a deal with the Saudi royal family and effectively all of OPEC that oil would only be traded in US dollars, and that underpinned a massive global demand for US dollars for the last 50 plus years. And we've seen that start to break down starting last year when we had the US pull out of Afghanistan, just abandon Afghanistan. And the US, the allies of the United States around the world saw that and thought, what if they did that to us? And one of those allies was Saudi Arabia, who had already been highly criticized by the current administration. And they said, you know what, we're going to side with Russia. And they signed a defense agreement with Russia, I believe within a couple of days of that. And now we're seeing they've been talking about trading oil to China and Chinese currency instead of US dollars. This goes on. Let's see what else they had to say. It says, and now according to Bloomberg, Saudi Arabia is open to discussions about trade in currencies other than the US dollar, according to the kingdom's finance minister. He said there are no issues with discussing how we settle our trade arrangements, whether it is in the US dollar, whether it's in the euro, whether it's the Saudi rial. I don't think we are waving away or ruling out any discussion that will help improve trade around the world. So guys, what this means is the petrodollar is dead. That petrodollar system where the United States agreed to militarily protect the Saudi royal family and OPEC in exchange for oil being traded in dollars, well, that agreement is gone. It's history. And so now we have this agreement between China and agreements between Russia. We have all sorts of agreements, but we essentially have Saudi Arabia joining the BRICS nations. And so we had the world's leading commodity producers, the world's leading manufacturers formed together in an alliance opposed to the United States and its allies, the Western financial system, and the US dollar. And that is huge because that is a fight that those nations will win financially. I want to turn to this article by Quote the Raven, which I think sums it up very well. So it says, Saudi Arabia just killed the petrodollar right in front of our eyes, and in the process took a huge step toward dethroning the US dollar as the global reserve currency. So again, let's focus on that last sentence or subtitle. The US dollar is not dead, but as I said at the beginning, this is the latest nail in the coffin of global power for the United States. And this puts us on a road to the United States being really an irrelevant empire from the past. Similar to, the United Kingdom still exists today, but it does not have the power globally that it had prior to World War I. We're going to see something similar happen with the United States as we move forward. And we'll talk a little bit more about why. But let's read further on this. It says, the last 24 hours have marked another major waypoint along the path to my long-held contention that Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia are going to make a massive collective push to try and dethrone the US dollar as a global reserve currency, or as the global reserve currency. Anyone who has read my 23 stocks to watch for in 2023 or any of my other recent articles discussing how I'm personally positioning myself for this thesis knows that I believe we are on the precipice of an unprecedented era geopolitically. Put simply, I believe there is a historic divide in the making between the BRICS nations led by Russia, China, and the West led by the United States. I was one of the few outlets last summer to even report on the fact that Russia and China openly announced a new global reserve currency, announced in July 2022, predicted by me in February 2022. And of course, Russia and China can't do it on their own. They're working with nations like Saudi Arabia and India to help put their plans into practice. Critical to dethroning the US dollar would be the removal of its use for buying and selling oil, a system that has been in place since the 1970s when the US promised security for the Saudi kingdom in exchange for the petrodollar system that underpins the dollar's strength as global reserve currency. It's a topic that I discussed at length back in September with Andy Scheckman on this podcast. And of course, we had, I believe just a couple of months ago, the End Times Bible Prophecy newsletter said is a financial Pearl Harbor. I forget the exact title, but it was on the subject of how the United States is positioned much like we were in 1941 for a Pearl Harbor-like attack to take place now. Such a financial attack. We're vulnerable to that, and this is precisely what we're talking about in that. So I'll put a link to that as well in the description below. But it says, Andy told me back in September 2022 the dollar hegemony is right about ready to break when you realize that Saudi Arabia is about to join the BRICS nations. Do you think Biden is going to fly there to ask for more oil? He went there to beg them not to join BRICS. The dollar was made reserve currency only because of our protection of the Saudi kingdom. He then noted astutely that Saudi Arabia had signed new protection agreements with Russia. All of the Eastern European countries that have repatriated their gold, they're all part of the EU, but they all trade their own currency. They're all going to break away from the Western system, he said. And now it looks like Andy was right. It appears Saudi Arabia has just issued a death knell to the exclusivity of the petrodollar as we once knew it, the first of several dominoes that needs to fall before the U.S. is exposed financially as an emperor with no clothes. Now, I want to focus again on that last sentence, the first of several dominoes. So again, this does not mean that overnight the U.S. dollar goes away, it's dead, it's worthless, that the United States crumbles, all of its power goes away. But this is beginning as this erosion of power. And I believe, just as we talked about in the first paragraph of that last article, at some point, Russia will come out as the low-cost producer of oil in the world and say, we are going to give everyone a bargain who pays in physical gold. And when they do that, it will drain the Western financial system of its gold. And we've talked in the past about the largest purchases of gold by central banks occurred in 2022, the most since 1967, right before Nixon closed that gold window, ended Bretton Woods, and we went to this petrodollar system. So we are on the verge of what you could call a great reset, a new monetary system, a new global financial system being put into place. And the United States will not be the one standing over that system and dominating global politics. Instead, you could argue it's going to be the BRICS nations, if anyone, but primarily it's going to be gold and real assets because the United States and the Western financial system is absolutely bankrupt. They've been using these worthless fiat currencies not backed by anything and issuing massive amounts of debt, and the bill for that debt is coming due now. Now, if we have any doubt about what Putin's intentions are, what the BRICS nations' intentions are, I think this next article will show us what it is. This is exactly what they're doing. This is from Cointelegraph. It says, Iran and Russia want to issue a new stablecoin backed by gold. The potential stablecoin aims to enable cross-border transactions instead of fiat currencies like the US dollar, the Russian ruble, or the Iranian rial. Now, keep in mind, we talked also in the past about very recently, within the last year, Russia and Iran inked a historic deal for the development of natural gas fields off the coast of Iran. It was in the tens of billions of dollars. They also openly discussed their goal to get Qatar to join them in essentially an OPEC for natural gas. So their goal is to control the liquefied natural gas market and the pipeline gas market so that they have enormous leverage over the global price of natural gas, becoming effectively the OPEC of natural gas. And when they do that, they're signaling with the story that they want those purchases to be made using gold. So in this case, they're using a cryptocurrency backed by gold. This isn't for trade among average consumers going to the store and buying some food or groceries or whatever. This is for countries trading with each other. And what are they going to be trading? Well, they're going to be trading natural gas, oil, other commodities. This goes on. It says the Central Bank of Iran is reportedly cooperating with the Russian government to jointly issue a new cryptocurrency backed by gold. According to the Russian news agency Vedomosti, Iran is working with Russia to create a token of the Persian Gulf region that would serve as a payment method in foreign trade. And what did we read in that first article? Well, President Xi was saying the same thing about trade of the yuan, and more importantly, they have a gold-backed yuan where the gold is deliverable upon receipt. So the world is effectively, these BRICS nations are trying to move the world back to some form of a gold standard. And all of this started, well, it started long ago, but really when the war in Ukraine took place, was it Putin's intention to goad the West into issuing these sanctions, kicking Russia out of SWIFT, seizing Russia's foreign dollar reserves, and sending a message to all the nations of the world: if you're on the wrong side of the United States, you're going to lose everything. You need the one asset that has no counterparty risk, and that is physical gold in your possession. And since then, we've seen massive amounts of gold buying by the central banks of all these countries. We're seeing them move away from U.S. treasuries and debt. Again, I believe this is all setting up for Putin at some point in the future making that announcement. We will sell discounted oil. It'll be discounted at first in terms of dollar, the dollar value of the gold he's willing to trade, but it will just push the price, the dollar denominated price of that gold upward, and it will suck the Western financial system dry of all physical gold when that happens. And that will be the final nail in the coffin. The Western financial system will collapse under massive inflation. The United States will lose its economic superpower status, and with it, its military superpower status, because the ability to operate all the military bases it operates all over the globe, to have this navy that patrols the waters of the earth, all of that is dependent upon financial superpower status, and the dollar is the world's global reserve currency. If that goes away, the United States can no longer live beyond its means, and it would have to raise taxes to such a level that the economy gets crushed, or it's going to have to cut its budget significantly. So I believe that's where all this is going. That is going to be the checkmate for Vladimir Putin when it happens. I think all of this is leading up to that moment at some point in the future. But nevertheless, as quote the Raven said here, the petrodollar system is now dead. Saudi Arabia has come out in the open and said, we will take other currencies. And when they take those currencies, they're not going to be going out and buying US treasuries with the currencies they get. They'll convert those currencies into gold, because gold retains its purchasing power until they need to use it to acquire whatever it is that Saudi Arabia wants. And all these other nations are doing the same thing. We've already seen Ghana has come out and said, as a producer of gold, they are going to trade gold to other countries for oil. So we're seeing all this take place. This is the Achilles heel of the Western financial system, headquartered in the United States. It's a system built on debt, and it's a bankrupt system. It used to be 100 plus years ago, the United States was the world's manufacturing superpower, resource rich, producing goods and services for the whole world. Now they've outsourced their manufacturing capacity. They don't exploit their natural resources to the level they once did. And their chief and primary export is the US dollar and US dollar denominated debt. And the world has woken up to the fact that they don't want to trade real goods and services for worthless pieces of paper and debt that can never be repaid. And so they're turning to gold and real commodities, gold, oil, real commodities. And when they do, the Western financial system will go into crisis and collapse. And Vladimir Putin, I believe, has known this long before he made a move on Ukraine, and he knew this is how this would play out. So we will see. What do you think? Leave your comments below. In regard to comments, I just want to apologize. I have not been able to reply to the comments lately. We are in the final weeks of completing our new house. The kids have been sick. I've been working overtime at my day job. So it's all I could do to even create these videos, much less respond to the comments or even read the comments. I haven't even read a comment in over a week because I've been working around the clock. So I apologize for that, but I will hopefully be able to start responding to those comments soon and hopefully catch up on some of those past videos in the comments. But leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Am I way off? Maybe I'm wrong. But guys, I don't think so, because we've been talking about this for months since the beginning of this channel. Since this channel was created, we've talked about this very scenario taking place. And this is just the latest nail in the coffin or domino to fall in that process. And it is a big one. Saudi Arabia essentially joining the BRICS nations is a huge change in the geopolitical alignment of nations, and it shifts the power from west to east. And from a prophetic standpoint, what does this mean? The Bible does not point to the United States as a superpower in the last days. It doesn't discuss it at all. And people have often looked at Ezekiel 38 and 39 and thought, why doesn't the United States come to Israel's aid? And a lot of people have said, well, maybe the administration just doesn't want to, chooses not to, because they've abandoned Israel. But what if they can't? Because America just is no longer a superpower. And I believe this is one step toward that time. I believe what will cement the United States' destruction and its end as a world superpower, it's going to be the rapture of the church. When that happens, that will be the one final last nail in the coffin for the United States of America as a global superpower. So this has huge prophetic significance for the alignment of nations, where the power in the world is located. So we're going to continue to keep an eye on this. But again, leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Make sure to like and share this. God willing, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. If you want to learn more about the end times and Bible prophecy, make sure to sign up for my free monthly newsletter and get your copy of my free ebook, 7 Signs of the End Times. Just follow the link in the description to get your free book. Also, make sure to check out all of my books. Just look up Britt on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, Google Books, Kobo, or anywhere books are sold. Thanks for watching today, and until next time, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith.